So guys, are you ready for none other than the rare battles coming up? So I figured we would go over first off the Demon Slayer versions of what you should be taking to them, especially if you want to be winning those winner or top 4 Tanjiros. So without further ado, let's set in video and talk about it. So guys, if you don't know, Red Riot Games helps out this channel. So they actually started listing and producing amazing looking action points. So if you guys have been waiting for some cool custom action points, Red Riot Games on their website has full access to these amazing looking action points that are pretty cool. But as you guys know, they do have singles, and especially with One Punch around the corner, they'll be filling up this weekend, and boom, you'll have an amazing set of cards. And he's always relevant on his pricing. Like, I have no objections on what he does with it. So hopefully you guys are excited for One Punch as I am. We're gonna be punching through all this, and we're excited to have everything. And especially if you guys are looking for some decent playmats, they have a great collection, and hopefully you guys get some as well. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this. Let's dive into the video and talk about the new One Punch Man stuff. So if you guys know how I do my tier list structures, I just want to use this for rare battles at the moment. So first off, let's get into it. We do have Muzan. I think it's definitely could win, but kind of like better luck next time kind of scenario. These don't matter here. I don't know why C and D are here, but at the end of the day, better luck next time kind of means that they're okay at best. They can definitely handle the could wins, but if it came across like the best to wins, it'll definitely crumble a little bit too much, and it doesn't really hold up to them very often. So that's kind of something to put into account. I definitely think the Daiki with, you know, Muzan kind of variant, which we do have the list to show you guys, but I think this is a very could win possibility. The abilities that it has and the way of attack patterns and all that good stuff lead into a very confident list, and I think at the end of the day, a lot of players will be able to do really well with it. Now, we do have the boys, Inosuke. Definitely think it could win, but paired to what we're going to be seeing more commonly, if you open up the nuts, you open up the nuts, and the deck kind of just glides through the wins, right? Then you do have the issue that it does come into, is that if you don't open the nuts, you're now falling behind way too quickly for your opponent to stop the bleeding that your opponent is causing, right? So at the end of the day, I think this is where you want to be at. You can definitely take a Inosuke. If you feel very comfortable going into it, go for it. Now, we do have the Tengen wives. Tengen, I think, is good, but at its current rate and even in competitive levels, I don't think it's good enough to handle even its current format. It has a lot of potential, right? Players could easily say it could win, it could definitely win, but I definitely feel like a lot of players are going to go like, you know, if I'm going to try to enter these, try to flip these cards for money, I'm definitely going to go for the best possible deck I can play and get me those wins, right? So I think Tengen just won't have that representation, and then you'll have the issues where Tengen is still a little bit slower than anything else. You know, the double attacks are cute, which can lead into very powerful plays, but I feel like the other decks just really outclass it in speed sometimes. And if it can even just outclass it in speed, if there's some decks that can just tank, like one of the best decks in the format, I think the biggest issue it does face is against the Hashira lists. Hashira, just a very powerful deck indeed. There's not many decks that can even handle the 45s very comfortably, and this is one of them. You know, the could wins, if they didn't face Hashira, they can definitely handle the shenanigans that, you know, Nezuko and Tanjiro do, but I think the problem comes down to the Hashira list. They struggle a little bit too much against because again, once at a certain point the board is filled, if you can't remove everything at a consistent rate, they're just going to keep that board presence, and every single turn these bodies are on the board, you're just not in that winning position. And then Nezuko, Tanjiro definitely feels like if you are playing yellow in this set, you are definitely doing well into your rare battles, to be honest with you. If you picked up yellow and just committed to that, I think you're in a good spot. I think you do have some good contenders in the could win departments, but you know, at the end of the better luck side, I do feel bad for you guys. Those are going to be a little more struggles. But again, I think Volume 2 changes that completely around. So if you guys take a look at the Tanjiro Nezuko list, as you can see here, you know, you do notice that the abilities that Tanjiro and Nezuko kind of give is that Nezuko is going to let you produce 5 attacks, maybe sometimes up to 6 is a possibility depending on lineup and everything like that, right? So if you have like 2 of these Tanjiros in the back line, and then you know another, like even if you just did these 2 Tanjiros with 2 Nezukos online, you know, you're going to be dealing enough damage with 4K bodies that your opponent's not going to be able to stop all these impacts cycling through, right? So at the end of the day, the deck has a lot going for it with the multi-attack possibilities. And again, they do have that one nuts possibility. Now, again, another big one is none other than the Hashira list. Again, a lot of players started picking up a lot of the Hashira support just to combo in and be good with it, just because Hashira is a very powerful deck. I mean, being able to keep your board presence, you have Mitsuru, who's a good removal. You know, any deck that can just have that 4-card removal is in a good spot in leagues above most others, right? So keeping that in mind, you do have access to, you know, a 2/8 action point removal card, and you have a natural removal card in the Hashira Trials. So at the end of the day, and you do have like the 45 that's going to be able to keep applying pressure, and again, a tribal deck sometimes is all you need. And then you have like Rangiku, who's going to be able to Donut Boy protect twice. You know, these stuff add up for some matchups, and this leads into being enough pressure to keep your opponent at bay. So I think, you know, once this board stabilizes with the Hashira list, your opponent's just going to have a troublesome time. Now, you do have Muzan with, you know, the Dakai with, you know, Gachiro. I'm going to botch these names. I have yet to really watch Demon Slayer, and I should. I know it's a great anime, but at the end of the day, you're going to be walking into this deck that has a lot going on for it with, you know, Emus, lower 6s, you know, Jotaro. All these cards add up eventually, and being able to have access to, you know, Daikais is really powerful, and it allows the opponent just to kind of just have to worry about what you're playing and how you built it. You know, this one is when attacking Daikais on the field, draw a card. When this character attacks, wins a battle, switch to active. Being able to, you know, as long as they are forced to block, this thing's going to produce 2 attacks by itself, which can lead to being closing out the game, right? So at the end of the day, even just having access to the Muzan in some way, shape, or form is, you know, double impact, double damage. Something you probably would want to be thinking about is playing these impact negators in your deck list for these events, just to up the quantity, just in case you do run into a heavier Daikai format with Muzans, because if Muzan can just somehow go live before you're ready, which is very unlikely because the fact is Muzan is a lot slower than what is currently available. Now, again, here is the Zenitsu with the boys. So if you guys don't know, this is basically playing donuts for fun, right? You know, you have Rangiku that's going to be able to remove something. So again, one of those common traits that are able to apply impact, get some extra damage in. You know, you do have Zenitsu, which can double damage, which forces your opponent. Again, if you open it up correctly with this list, you're far ahead in the curve that most lists can handle, right? You know, you have to be on curve. You have to have the right pieces at the right time. It all matters at the end of the day, to be honest with you. And I love how the list was built. It's very similar to what I had for the OG list. But again, you look at it, they are playing at a lower curve than even I was going with. But I think at the end of the day, you're in a good spot regardless, right? You know, as long as you can get your pieces. Again, the bigger problem of this deck is red doesn't draw very often. This deck doesn't have any like innate draw cards besides the raid Zenitsu, which you need to have the correct Inosuke on the field to draw a card, then, you know, trash a card. It is a very contingency strategy. I don't understand why we're trashing cards in this deck. It should not have mattered. You should have just been able to draw 2 cards. Now, taking a look, the Tengen Wive deck is another possibility. With Bento, just giving that extra boost. Tengen can double attack when played on the first turn, and then, you know, all turns, all your Wives in Disguise affiliate cards gain, you know, 500 attack until the end of turn. All great stuff, right? It just leads into applying the pressure that you really want to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Tengen's a great card in general, but again, the deck kind of falls short with the same issue that even the boys have, and that is they just don't have a consistent enough draw engine. So you're basically spending AP points just to sometimes do something. And the fact that this deck holds a high on trigger accounts makes this deck a little bit kind of a deterrent for some players. So that's kind of like the big thing, especially if you want to be more efficient. You want to be able to have your triggers activate. Now, even like Muzan here has a lot of draw going for it, but again, a high number of triggers. So again, 16 non-triggers in your deck sometimes leads to hurting you. I mean, yes, you have like the lower 4. Lower 3 that's going to draw you a card. Lower 6 is just when sideline, draw a card, then place a card in your hand into the sideline. All these cards do add up to add some great value, but if you notice, there isn't many cards that are going to draw you any cards in your trigger lineup. So, you know, you have Tonane, you know, this one's going to draw you a card. Outside of that, you're not drawing any cards out of your deck, so you have to rely on triggers to get them to your hand. You know, that's not going to add up being very nicely. I think that's the biggest issue. Like, you do have 8, 12. Yeah, you have 8 triggers that'll draw you a card naturally. So, again, these are stuff you have to be really cautious when taking these into a major event. Like I said, if you take a look at a lot of these decks, this is only at 8 non-triggers. You know, 9 non-triggers. You know, this is 38, which is pushing it, but I think it's kind of fine if you're just going to 12 triggers, you know, non-triggers. Again, when you're starting getting into these weird spots, this one has plenty of triggers, but again, relies on that to kind of maybe draw you cards. At the end of the day, it's not always guaranteed and leads you to be struggling. And then like this, 16 non-triggers is just a little high. But I got all in all, guys, hopefully you are excited and ready to take on your, you know, Demon Slayer rare battles. Definitely let me know what decks you win with. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, the subscribe button. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.